Well, we're 1 minute early, but let's go ahead and get started. I have Luis Bonilla with me today. I'll call him an expert. He's a digital marketing guru. I've been really impressed I've worked with him, but also I've been really impressed with his resume. I'll give you a little brief rundown of that. Currently, he works at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism in the Digital Audiences Lab. He helps students understand how to reach digital audiences and gives them the tools that they need to be effective in their jobs in digital marketing. Before that, he's had a swath of experience in different digital marketing roles, one of which was for the Phoenix Suns. How long were you there with the Phoenix Suns, Luis?
2 seasons.
Okay, awesome. And that's when they stunk, so it was really hard to sell those tickets.
Exactly. I was in the hard years.
Now it's an easy job, probably. Jeez. Well, that's cool. Well, I'm excited to have him here today. One of the things that I realized from the start of when I jumped out and started my own team and firm was I wanted to have a good online presence. And from the very get-go, I've used Luis and have been really impressed with what he does. And that's one of the reasons that we're talking today is just to share some of the insights that can make people effective in their digital marketing. He's got like I said, a swath of experience, and he also approaches things from not always the traditional angle. And so he has part of what I think he gets from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism there is he gets an opportunity to test out a lot of different things on non-paying clients or sometimes paying clients, but that want that from the school. And so he gets to test out things that otherwise some people might be hesitant to do, which is a very cool thing because then I've been the benefactor of that. So he does run a company called ZingLead. So he's got basically two full-time jobs. He has a team that works with him at ZingLead as well. So he's not just a one-man shop that's trying to accomplish everything. So he does have support there. Um, we're gonna. Oh, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Let me just go one at a time. This is the disclaimer. I've told you every time on these webinars. This is always the legal disclaimer that lawyers will provide. If you need specific facts for your situation, please reach out. Before we jump into some items that Luis is going to share with us, I wanted to give you an update. The issue of vaccine mandates has only risen in fury and in people's minds. There's been a lot of employers, some of them, even some cities, have been forcing or making vaccine mandates mandatory. A lot of people have mixed feelings about this, and one of the things that I would say is just sometimes it's important just to take a step back and contemplate what it is. We don't have to always assign a positive or negative feeling to those things, but I know it does create a lot of friction. So one of the things that I want to share with you is what is the current status of the vaccine mandates. Well, the EEOC is the body that regulates employer requirements for employees to not discriminate based on certain factors. The EEOC gave guidance in the last month on these issues, and one of the things that happened is employers can mandate a vaccine or mandate that people get the vaccine unless there's two exemption categories. One is for religious conviction. You have certain people, and I don't want to talk out of turn. I believe it would be like a Seventh-day Adventist. I don't know if they are willing to get any shots or things like that. It has to be a true religious conviction, I guess, is my point. It can't be something that people say, oh, well, I just don't want to get it, and therefore I'm going to say it's a religious conviction. You're going to have to show some proof of that. The second is if it's a disability would prevent you from doing it. So I know some people, their doctors have said, hey, they've got an underlying heart issue or lung issue, and if they get the vaccine and it can cause greater impact on those people, then they can't be forced to get the vaccine. The then factors that jump into play, the employer has to, if they want to still force the vaccine mandate on that employee, they have to show that it would cause a direct threat to the health and safety of other employees if they don't get it. And secondly, there's not really another way to prevent the direct threat. So for instance, social distancing and masks have been a way that people can prevent the threat. And so if it's something that they can wear a mask and social distance, it's likely going to be not a direct threat to people. So if you have questions on that, please reach out. We've been sharing different vaccine policies with employers, meaning people that want to either encourage vaccines or people that have mandated them. We have been creating policies for that. So basically updates to employment handbooks or separate policies for those things. So give us a call if you need help with that. One thing that a lot of people were confused by, there was a mandate issued by the Indiana University that said, hey, all students have to get a vaccine, the COVID vaccine. And with that, 8 students filed what's called an injunction. They said, hey, we need the court to stop this immediately while pending an outcome on the ultimate case. Well, it went to what's called the district court, which is in state district court and federal court. And the judge said, no, we're not going to stop it. It went to the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals said, no, we're not going to stop it. And then it went up on petition to the Supreme Court, and it went up on these. It's called a special petition. It went up to Amy Coney Barrett, the newly appointed Supreme Court justice, and she said, we're not going to. She denied the petition to hear it. It doesn't mean that she ultimately denies or disagrees with one thing or another, but those are very rare cases to get a petition granted to the Supreme Court. They only take a couple hundred cases a year, so it's not very frequent that they would step in on that. The ruling by the district court judge said each university may decide what is necessary to keep other students safe in congregate setting. Health exams and vaccinations against other diseases, measles, mumps, rubella, diphtheria, tetanus, I don't know that word, varicella, meningitis, influenza, and more are common requirements of higher education. Vaccination protects not only the vaccinated person, but also those who come in contact with them. And at the university, close contact is inevitable. So you can start to see into the eyes of the judges what they're looking for and what they're going to rule on these issues based upon some of the recent rulings in this one in particular. Another thing that came out it was probably a month and a half ago, I had to cancel my last webinar due to my father-in-law being critically ill. And so I wasn't able to share this update, but about a month and a half ago, President Biden issued an executive order. And the executive order was requesting that the FTC, the Fair Trade Commission, actually issue guidance the Federal Trade Commission, it should be fair, issue guidance on restricting non-compete agreements in all states. At the federal level, they can do that, but this would go to private employers. Typically, this has been held or been governed on a state-by-state basis. You have some states like California that do not allow, for large part, non-compete agreements for employees. They don't really allow them for a lot of things, including that they do allow them in some instances for like the sale of a business. If you're the owner and selling the business and you're employed ongoing after the fact with that business, you might be able to have a non-compete. Arizona allows for non-compete agreements. They are strictly looked at by the court to see if they're reasonable. If you have questions about a non-compete that you have in place or you need to update your non-compete, let us know. We'd love to help. The biggest takeaway from this, a lot of people got really scared. Nothing has happened yet. I guess that's the biggest takeaway. He said, I want something to happen, but as of yet, nothing has happened. So don't get too concerned. The other thing that's critical to know is non-compete is only one form of what we call restrictive covenant. There's what's called non-solicit agreements, non-solicit of clients, non-solicit of employees, and non-disclosure agreements, which is, hey, you can't share confidential information that you learned at my workplace with maybe a new employer that you go work with or other things like that. So if you need help getting the proper non-solicit, non-disclosure agreements in place, please give us a call. The other thing that I always love to remind people of is in Arizona, a lot of people try to put non-compete agreements on independent contractor relationships. By definition, that can't be done. If somebody's an independent contractor, they should be able to go and do work for somebody else in the same field. It is their business to do so. So one of the things we help people with is drafting really good non-solicit and non-disclosure agreements for those independent contractors, so that what you're really looking for to be protected is protected. All right. Well, we've passed through the really non-exciting stuff. Now we get to jump into the exciting stuff. So I'm going to pull it over or push it over to Luis now. We're going to have a little bit of back and forth. These are the 5 tips that he's outlined for us. We're going to have questions that really help us dive into these issues. But Luis, go ahead and walk us through just this outline, and then let's jump into the first question.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Appreciate the intro and all the kind words you said. So I'll try to live up to that high bar. So in thinking of 5 digital marketing tips, obviously there's tons out there. I had to narrow the list down from 15, but I felt that these 5 are kind of core, especially if you're just starting out, maybe a little bit newer into the digital realm. If you kind of have these 5 nailed down, you're going to be in a really good start. So the first one on a professional website, as you can see, second is research and understand online competitors. 3, consistently create differentiating, useful content.
Mhm.
4, ask your customers to provide reviews. And then 5, invest time and money in digital channels that work for your business.
Hmm.
So we'll get into kind of the nitty gritty there, but that's kind of the outline. I feel if you have these down, you'll be in a very good starting point.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into this first scenario then, okay?
Sounds good.
Scenario 1, I'm trying to create a website for my company. What are the most important things that I should be doing to make my website look professional? Also, how much should I expect to spend? So let's jump into that first question first. How do you make a website look professional?
Great question. So there are a couple different ways to do this. Obviously with a lot of website, platforms that try to make it easy for website owners to make, such as Wix or Squarespace. There's some, options out there, and then those are a little bit maybe more hands-on. Maybe know some HTML or CSS coding. There's WordPress. But I would say that the most important things, I'll kind of hit on a couple here. So the first one I would say is logo creation. And so I would definitely recommend hiring a designer, a graphic designer, to create a professional logo, because that is usually the first thing that a user will see once your website loads. And if that first impression, you have, tenths of a second there to make the first impression, if that looks a little off, that looks like you created that in Microsoft Paint, then it's going to kind of set the tone for the rest of their experience there. And some might even just bounce. So logo, I would say very, very important there. And then the rest of the website too, I would say, especially more now, people are more used to some more modern, more open, little more white space between a lot of the clunky, convoluted, text-heavy websites that used to be, back in the day. So making sure it's clean, it's very easy for somebody to find information, what they're going for. Obviously, things like professional images, I would say. So sometimes, especially for small businesses I've seen, they take the pictures themselves, maybe on, a phone, and, maybe for a blog post or other things that might be okay. But again, we only have seconds to make a good first impression, and you want these images to be crisp, clean, fitting the space for your page. All these, obviously related to the business you are, the product you're selling. And so I would say images are definitely a very important aspect for giving that professional aesthetic. And then the content itself, the text. If you're not really a wordsmith, again, if you're a website designer or company doesn't have any in-house writers, again, I would, outsource that out and have somebody come in and kind of maybe talk to you, get an interview, and then write some professional website content on there. This is beyond just like misspellings and grammar, but we're trying to present the best you for your business. And we're also trying to convince people that may not know about you, maybe your business isn't out there as much, to trust you and to provide some of the harder money for your service or product. And so I would say those main things there would help give that professional feel for your website.
That's awesome. One of the things that I think you've said multiple times is the image quality. So the clarity, I know that when I pull up websites that, as you mentioned, maybe don't have crispness to them, you see the logo and it's fuzzy or something like that, you immediately, I think in our minds, we just immediately think, well, they must not be very detail oriented, or they must not have the ability to be crisp and clean, which is, it's a bad first impression, like you say. It's no different than showing up to a job interview and, an old grungy t-shirt and jeans. You should be presentable, and that's really a good thing. Now, a lot of people that we help, they're small business owners, right? And when you say graphic designer, when you say website designer, people are just thinking tons of money. And in my experience, that's not the case. I think that's what you've also experienced, but putting a little money towards that is going to be critical. So let's talk real quick about that. If we have a small business owner that's looking for a simple website that's crisp, clean, and clear, what do you think the cost would be for that?
For sure. No, that's another great question. And before I answer that, I forgot one more thing I was going to say before about the professional aspect, is making sure it's mobile first friendly.
Yeah.
A lot of users are on mobile. Most of the clients that I have, I look at their analytics, both for ZingLead and for ASU's clients. And 65% are using mobile first. And so a lot of times people design desktop, it looks great, and forget about the mobile aspects. I just wanted to point that out real quick. But as far as how much to spend, it varies, I would say, by not only the industry that you're in, but how big of a website, how much functionality you're going to require. And so a lot of it, obviously some of the back end for maybe functionality, such as taking in, customer information and then having that spit out into a database. And, some of that back end functionality might cost a lot and have some dev time required.
Yeah.
But if you were just looking at a basic website, maybe 5 to 8 pages, images, text, kind of like what we just talked about, I would say the ballpark, usually between $2,000 and $5,000.
Yeah,
I would say, and it's, again, turnaround time will come into factor if you need it in a month versus you're okay with 2 months. It varies, and it's hard to just give like a blanket number there. But I would say that's kind of the realm. I would say 80% of small business websites are probably between 2,000 and 5,000. But again, if you need professional photographer hired to go take some pictures, and if you need all these other extra things that maybe you don't have, that maybe you can't supply yourselves, then that'll add to the cost of that. Sure. It also depends on if you're going to get, let's say use WordPress as an example, because that's what Zingly does. We provide WordPress websites. If you're going to go off of a established theme, you maybe purchase from a third party, versus if you're going to create a totally customized theme from scratch. Yeah, there's differences there. It's not to say that purchasing a theme is a lot less time, because once you purchase it, you have to make it your own and still put in your images. It's just, it's nice to have that foundation where you're not creating every single aspect.
It's like buying a home that's built and putting furniture in it versus starting to build a home from scratch. I think that's, and so the themes, that's where, in my experience too, it's been, most people use, for a small business, most people use a theme. It's not something that you're looking to go create a custom website, because there's literally a million themes out there that you can find and they're constantly updating. If you don't have a theme that you use, then you're the one responsible to update any glitches and all that, whereas the theme helps. So no, I love that. That's very good. All right, let's jump into number 2.
Great.
What types of things should I be looking for when reviewing my online competitors? All right, what is it that you look for, Luis?
So another great question. These are all good questions. I don't know.
It must be from the tips.
So one of the things that I start looking for, so I have a couple of tools available to me. Some of these are kind of freemium, or you can use a little bit for free, but you got to pay for extra. But so I'll kind of throw some of those out there. So one, as I use a website crawler called Screaming Frog. What that does is I can basically put in any website into this tool, and it crawls every single web page and image from the website. Wow. So I can kind of see at an aggregate level, here's all their pages, here's some of the SEO items, so some of their title tags and meta descriptions, if their images are optimized, and the breadth of their website, and kind of see if it's optimized or not. Okay, maybe their SEO is a little bit off. And then there's other tools like SEMrush, where you can kind of see the back end of maybe how many backlinks they have. This is, again, more towards the SEO aspect. So how many other websites are linking to them as a resource or as a credible business. You could see if they have some paid advertising on some of their ads. You can see if they have some social things going on. It gives you an estimate of how much traffic they're coming in. And so you can kind of see some of the back end stuff and compare your website to it. Like, my website's ranking for 8 keywords and my competitor's ranking for 300. Maybe I have some catching up to do. What are they ranking for? What content is ranking for those keywords? Do I have content like that? Should I? So there's a lot of extra questions and things that you can compare yourself to. And this is especially helpful if you're starting out.
And I would say this, Luis.
Go ahead.
You just mentioned a lot of things that are probably over a lot of people's heads, which is awesome. And that's something I'm a strong believer in. Why we do these webinars is I'm a strong believer in that I don't know everything. And it's critical to have people that know more than you in specific areas do it. I mean, I know, many of the people that listen to this are smart enough to figure out certain things about developing a website or looking at, competitors in certain ways. But your experience being in the field and really being an expert in that field lends to having these additional tools that other people wouldn't have. And so I just think that's always important to remember Some of this language is probably over people's heads, but everything that you're saying is exactly what people need in order to be not only competitive, but to be ahead of their competition.
For sure, for sure. And then maybe something that we could do if you don't have access to these tools is you could just do a simple Google search and even look at their business list in there on Google. So if you see how many reviews they've had, you can see if they've had a website. And I've actually seen now, especially since late last year and this year, it seems that Google's putting a little bit more importance on some of the brick and mortar businesses that have taken some COVID-19 precautions. Like, do they offer, what is it called, touchless experience if they're picking up food, or do you have a digital experience, or, there are masks required, things of that nature that I've seen and have had read blogs that have done studies. Has seen that actually helps maybe push you up a little bit higher in businesses that haven't. And then obviously when you're looking at reviews, making sure that, they look legitimate and whatnot. But those are, I guess, some of the things that I would look for and in comparing, my website.
That's cool. I'll take the next one. If I copy something they are doing, are they going to sue me? We actually handle copyright and trademark infringements on a regular basis, and both for people that are being infringed on, and then also on the back end for people that have been alleged to be infringing. There's things that you need to look at. If you truly are copying, then that can be an issue. There's copyright laws that will probably get you in trouble. And or if there's logos that are similar, or maybe you don't even know. A lot of people don't know when they've infringed on a logo. It could be somebody in a different area and they have a federal trademark for this logo. So that's something that if you have those questions, we can help you figure that out. The last one here, before we jump into the next question, how do I know which of my online competitors, or how do I know, which of my online competitors are actually doing well?
Great. So aside from kind of what I was saying before, with the other metrics, I would say one nice quick test that any small business owner could do is type in a lot of phrases, keyword phrases into Google and see what results come up. And I need to, be ranking for, say truffles in Mesa. And so truffles in Mesa, truffle stores, these things. And if you see your competitors always ranking at the top, then you can maybe assume, at least on search, that they're doing well enough to have Google trust them to be ranking highly for these terms and these product, searches.
Yeah.
That's a very good key indicator. Other one obviously is reviews, and maybe not just on Google reviews. I would even look at if they have any Facebook reviews, if they have a Yelp, see if they're on social and stuff, and see how many followers they have. Are these followers engaging with their content? You can do a lot of surface level investigation there and just see how their digital presence is. And so if they don't have a lot of these different things, maybe you can assume, at least digitally, they're not maybe on par, but there's certain things if you just research the company name and kind of see their footprint to see how well they're doing online.
That's a great idea. I really actually think that many of us wouldn't think to do that, but that's great. Okay. Scenario 3. I'm so busy just trying to run my business. I talk to people every day that are in this scenario. Luis is in this scenario. All of us are small business owners. That it is hard to take the time to consistently create differentiating, useful content. What are some tips to doing this well?
Perfect. So, we can go in maybe in a couple of different ways. So I would say one of the maybe easiest, but maybe cost a little bit more to do it is to, again, hire out to an expert that does that. So someone that content could be anything from blog posts, or if you want to post things on social media, maybe hiring a social influencer to help with that, a videographer, anything that can take off some of the time from maybe that isn't your core skill set. Time is, I think every business owner knows, time is your most precious commodity. It's not even money sometimes. And so finding ways to kind of streamline what you can do well. Maybe you can give them the rundown of what you would like to say. They build it back, and maybe editing is a lot faster than starting from scratch. If you do have some time, maybe you can, schedule out maybe 1 hour every 2 or 3 days to do something. I would, have a game plan for maybe like a content calendar. And so, okay, this week we're going to hit these 2 topics. I'm going to spend 2 hours on 1 hour Monday, 1 hour Wednesday to hit these things, and kind of bake it into your work schedule that way. Sometimes, as probably many business owners know, there is no traditional 9 to 5. It's the whole day whenever you can get it done, Saturday, Sunday, sometimes too. So I would say to maybe use some of the time maybe when you feel freshest, and maybe that's in the morning before you get started. Maybe it's later in the afternoon before you go to sleep, just to kind of relax, whatever the case may be. It's just putting that into your schedule and actually making it a considered part of your effort is going to go a long way. Because if you just think about it, oh, I need to do that later, it's never going to happen. As far as actually differentiating the useful part, is going to be very, I keep saying unique, right? Unique to your business. And so again, that's where kind of the competitor research comes about. And what I would like to do, and to have my clients do, is to focus maybe on an area that isn't being covered a lot. So for me, I've actually chosen not to do a lot of like blog posts on SEO or social media, because there's thousands of people putting out the same content, and it's like regurgitated, and it's like, okay, like, am I going to be another one of the 50,000 voices out there?
Yeah.
And so finding that niche where you can stand out, it's obviously still related to your business, but making sure that it's not really being covered, or doing it from a different angle. Maybe you're doing video instead of everybody's doing text. Maybe you start a podcast and everybody was doing video, doing something a little bit different, giving that user an experience that they don't currently have, is going to help differentiate you from the competitors.
That's one thing that I think there's a lot of value to. And I've talked to people in my industry that don't do my same area of law. I'll talk to them about things too. I mean, I think that's a useful resource. I'm a huge advocate for talking to people, right? Other people have knowledge, other people have information. Doesn't mean everything that is going to be valuable to me, but at the same time, it's just really neat to be able to share and understand different viewpoints, because that's probably my biggest holdup oftentimes is I can see the way I see, and not always the way that the customer or client or other people will view it. So that's been helpful for me. All right, scenario 4, from a digital marketing perspective, how valuable are customer reviews?
Perfect. So everything I've read, even recently, still has reviews at the very, in the top 3 important things to do from a digital marketing perspective. People rely on those. It's word of mouth. If you're doing it right, obviously you're not paying people for that. So people are going to probably trust those a little bit more than maybe what you have on your website. Like, we're the best, we have trophies, but people offline are saying X, Y, and Z about you. So of course, I think people are more cognizant of the quality of them. But by and large, you can kind of tell, the real ones from the ones that are not. And generally, I would say most of the time it's either going to be a 5-star or a 1-star. It's either the business killed it and gave that awesome experience where they have to give it, or somebody felt slighted in some way and they give you the 1. I rarely see the 2, 3s, and 4s. It's just you either the best or the worst, and there's no in between, right? It's very black and white. And so from, Google still, utilizes those as part of their local algorithm ranking factors. Again, it's hard to know, the percentage of that, but they're still taking that into context. And obviously with, Yelp being kind of a third-party citation that Google still sees your business on, it takes everything into consideration. But I would say not only just for the ranking purposes, but for people actually trusting your business. Not only the volume, I would say, but I would say the recency as well, because they want to see that, okay, maybe every week or 2 we're still getting some in versus, oh, this was reviewed 6 months ago. Like, how's it been I've even had that as a consumer, like, well, they had some pretty good reviews, but that was 6 months ago. Like, what happened in the last 6 months? Like, does nobody love it, or like, what's going on?
For sure.
So making sure that the recency is there as well.
And I think you touched on this already, so I don't know if we have to go into it, but do customer reviews help my website rank better?
Short answer, yes. And a little bit more explanation on that. I've seen where a business had 200 reviews and it was still ranked lower than someone that had 40 reviews. And so it's not a numbers game where if I have more, it's going to be better. So there's a lot of ranking factors that go into the local search, the user location, the keywords they typed in, so again, some of the recency of the reviews. But by and large, if you have a lot of reviews that are recent, it's not going to hurt you at all, but it definitely does help.
A lot of good reviews, I assume.
Yes. I haven't seen too many 51-star reviews ranking at the top.
That's great. All right. If I have a limited budget of $5,000 to start my digital marketing efforts, what should I spend it on?
Great question. So again, I don't want to keep saying like it depends, but it truly depends. There's no like one answer fits all businesses. And so I would say my answer would be different if you're just starting out from scratch versus I've been in the game for 3 years. How do I take that next step? So if you're starting from scratch, I would say, some of that 5,000, if like we were talking about before, the website is part of that. I'm going to earmark, 1,500 at least for my website. And then the rest of that, as I always like to say, especially because of the baseball thing that just happened, the Field of Dreams. So this isn't Field of Dreams, you build it, they will come. Once you have your awesome website, you got to start attracting people to that. And so I would say a good mix at first to start is to focusing on search and some social. And the social meaning maybe the paid ad aspect of it, because if you're just starting out, then you're not going to have that user base and people sharing your content if you're new. Search, if you're not, in my opinion, if you're not on Google, you almost don't exist. People obviously use that to search and they trust that search engine the most still. And so not only investing in search engine optimization, because that's more of a long-term game, but investing in some Google ads and paid search off the bat, because that will actually help you know which keywords are working and which ones aren't, to even help supplement your SEO efforts as well. So I'd say website, search, and some paid social. That would probably start that first. And then from there, you can build off and see what works and kind of move some money around and maybe start implementing some new channels.
I think part of this is you have to create that concept that the digital marketing is going to be part of your budget moving forward. And so I think if people ask you, I know you've told me this, but you can't do a one and done on digital marketing. It's going to be ongoing. There's always constant tweaking. There's constant strategy discussions and decisions to make. There's kind of an ongoing basis to think through things. So you can't just say, oh, I've got this $5,000, I'm going to throw it here. Like you said, Field of Dreams, and it's going to do something. In reality, no. I dedicate time each week to look at social media. I look at Google Ad. I look at all the different platforms and things that we do to see what the effectiveness is. We look at things that we maybe could do better, things that we need to change up. And it's part of my job as a business owner to do that in order to be effective. So that's one of the things that I think I would suggest as well, is be planning for and prepared for setting aside not only a monthly financial budget for this, but also a weekly time budget for your digital marketing.
Perfect. I agree.
Awesome. Well, let's see. All right. Scenario 5. My business is mostly a referral-based business. What are the best digital marketing things I can do?
Great. So referral based, I would say maybe it sounds like maybe they're talking maybe even word of mouth.
Yeah.
So I would say let's take some of that conversation in person and move that to online. So how could we make some things easier for people to give referrals online? So I would say maybe building up an email marketing list. And so people can actually share some things. I would have some easy ways to share the content, things on my website. So if there's like share this page, or here's an email address you can share with your friends.
Yeah.
If you have a client or a customer and they like your service or they keep coming back to you, another good thing that I've seen a lot of businesses do, especially local ones, is some type of reward system. If you refer somebody, you get X amount off your next purchase or percentage off your next service. Add some gamification to it, because again, even I, as a marketer, I know what they're doing, but I still fall for it. I'm competitive. I want to get this stuff. So if you make it easier for your customers to give referrals, then, that's a win-win.
That's awesome. Gamification. I like that concept. That's great.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing that I've noticed too, and you've already touched on it probably 3 or 4 times, but when you get a referral, people are already trusting that the service you provide will be good. However, in my field, we have various services that we offer. So somebody may have come to us for one thing and litigation matter, but they know we do transactional work. We do buy-sell agreements for companies. So a lot of times they'll even go to the website still or to the Google reviews. and look through to see if there's, reviews that people had a positive experience on that specific issue. So I still think that's also, it's almost referral, and then secondary confirmation of the referral can happen on that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Let's see what's, I think that's it. Yeah. Well, Luis, thank you so much. That was helpful. The 5 tips, like we talked about: own a professional website, research and understand online competitors, consistently create differentiating, useful content, ask your customers to provide reviews, and invest time and money in digital channels that work for you. If any of you have questions, either for me on the legal side or for Luis on the digital marketing side, here's our contact information. We probably won't be able to take questions today, but we look forward to helping you in the future. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Luis. Appreciate it.